Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. On today's show we are going to go over an attack on a surfer, of course. We're going to go over an attack on a diver. He was actually spearfishing. We're going to go over an attack on a person that was doing a freedom swim. And we'll finish out the show with just a crazy attack on a diver. And it's just a brutal witnessing by the rescue team. And we'll go over that at the end. Stick around, it's going to be a great show. Okay, now we're going to start out the show. We're going to head over to the Bua coast of Fiji, and the date on this attack that it was reported, so I'm not sure the attack happened on this date, but this was the date the attack was reported, was April 20th of 1960. An unidentified woman was out doing some fishing. She was wade fishing, and it was reported she was up to her shoulders in the water, so you're probably talking 4 foot of water that she's in. Doesn't say the time of day, that she's up to her shoulders and a shark comes up and attacks her. She's being attacked and she yells to the people that are in the area, and they turn and they can see the splashing of the water around her. The shark starts circling her after it's done attacking her. So it goes in and attacks her. She screams for help. They see the shark and the splashing, and then she starts making her way to shore, warning them not to come into the water because the shark is still there. It's circling her. She gets herself almost all the way in, still telling them to not come in, but they finally go into the water, get her into shore. She ended up missing a large portion of her lower legs, and just the meat. It doesn't sound like that it severed the legs. It removed flesh from her legs, and she ended up passing away. It sounds like on the beach from this attack. They're not sure what size shark it is or what kind of shark. Being as it's Fiji and this kind of attack, I would think a tiger shark. That would be my best guess on this one. So we're not going to be able to put down the type of shark or the size, but it's obviously going to be of size to be in our statistics. So this unidentified woman that was reported on this date, we will put it down as an attack, not an attempt to predate by, we don't know what kind of shark and we don't know what size. We're just going to assume this is big enough for our stats, so it's going to go in there. And this one was a tough one to go attempt to predate, not attempt to predate. But with the shark leaving her alone after it attacked her the first time, like I said, bite and wait doesn't seem to be a thing with sharks when they're feeding. So I'm putting this down as a non-feeding shark, and we will move on. Okay, now we're going to head over to Palm Beach, which is over in South Africa. The date on this attack is April 4th of 2011. Trevor Berger, he is 37 years old. He and his friend Forey, they had gone out early in the morning. They left Glenmore Beach early in the morning in their boat, and they went out into a few areas of Glenmore Beach area, and they were doing their diving there, spearfishing, and they had no luck. They weren't getting anything there, so they decided to head over later on in the morning, probably early afternoon. Fishing can take hours without you noticing, so I don't think they even know what time this happened, but they go over to another spot, which is over in the Palm Beach area, and they dive into the water there. He gets 30 feet from the boat, and this doesn't say the time of the day, but like I said, it's probably somewhere around noon. And they had seen, when they pulled up into the Palm Beach area, they had seen some red sardines being dive bombed by birds. So that told them there's other fish in the area. When you have that and birds are eating the fish and the fish particles are going out, it's like chumming the water. So other fish are going to show up to join in this feeding. So that's where they're going to spearfish. They get into the water, and Trevor spears himself 2 fish right away. He gets 2 fish, and after the second fish, he gets it up and into the boat. So they're getting the fish, taking them up, putting them in the boat, going after another fish. Well, after he got his second fish, Forey decided to drift himself to the other side of this reef that they were by. So he's on the other side of the reef, Forey is, and Trevor's still where he's spearing these fish, and he goes down and he spears another fish, and he spears it about 10 meters down. So you're talking about 33 feet below the surface. He spears himself a fish. He is on the way to the surface, and a shark out of nowhere comes up, grabs him by the leg, bites it, shakes hard twice, and just heads on the way. So just bite, shake twice, and go on the way. Could have been after the fish. He was taking the fish up to the surface. Would sound like that's probably what ended up happening here. They're not sure of what kind of a shark ended up doing this. He gets to the surface, tells his buddy he was bitten by the shark. They get him on the boat. They had some first aid kit on the boat and staunched the bleeding while they got him in. No talk of any arteries or nerves being damaged in the bite, so it sounds like he just had to be sewed up. Had to be pretty bad bite though. When it shakes, that's when you get the real bad tears, even from a shark that doesn't normally do a lot of damage. If it's shaken, you're going to get a lot. Same thing with a dog. When it's biting you, it's going to do more damage when it shakes than rather when it bites down. Same thing. So Trevor couldn't identify the shark. It was 6 to 8 feet. They're on a reef, probably a reef shark, gray reef shark, a white tip reef shark, black tip reef shark. 6-footer can do some damage, especially with the shaking with it. So that's what I would think that this ended up being. A shark that was just going after his fish. Ended up getting him in the leg, shook twice, knew it wasn't a fish, and headed on its way. Unattacked, not an attempt to predate. 6-foot shark, we just don't know what type of shark, so that's how that'll go down. An attack, not an attempt to predate. And that's our story of Trevor Berger, and we'll move on. Okay, now this next attack, we're going to head over to Mears Bay, which is in Hong Kong, and the date this attack was reported was September 10th of 1973. Tsang Kai-shing, he is 20 years old. He is with 2 other Chinese, and they are swimming to Hong Kong. They're swimming for their freedom. They're refugees. They're in the water and they're swimming. There's no telling time of day, depth of water, distance from any shore. And Tsang is attacked by a shark, which goes ahead and is fatal. So he's fatally attacked by the shark. The other 2 swimmers are unharmed, and they continue their swim. And the 2 were picked up by a police launch. It doesn't say if it was from Hong Kong or if it was from China. It's hard to tell which one it would be without them saying. So just a police launch got out and rescued the 2 surviving refugees, and then went and collected Tsang's body. So even though Tsang Kai-shing was bitten by the shark, it did not consume him. He was probably in the water floating there for quite a bit of time. It sounds like it was just, one of those terrible first hits from a shark coming up from below attacking you, and usually a great white, I would think, in that area. So I think probably a great white went ahead and did one of those vicious territorial attacks on him, and it turned out to be fatal, as they a lot of times are, especially once you get into 10-foot plus of those sharks. There's no telling of what species, what size, but I would imagine, like I said, a large shark over 10 feet, and I would imagine a great white was responsible for that. But without any talk of any injuries, you can't really make a statement on whether it was trying to feed or not. And I would go, it's not trying to feed if it left the body there that long. And that's the story. Attack, not an attempt to predate. Don't know what kind of shark or what size. Okay, now we're going to head over to Glen Eden Beach, and that is over in Oregon. The date is November 22nd of 2013. Andrew Gardiner, he is 25 years old. He and a friend Nolan are out doing some surfing. They're out in the water for an hour and a half to hour 45 minutes doing some surfing, and about an hour 45 minutes in, he's reportedly about 30 yards from the beach, sitting in 6 to 10 feet deep water, and it's about 10:30 in the morning. He's sitting on his board, and Andrew is waiting on a wave when suddenly a shark breaches from his left. So from his left side, a shark breaches the water and clamps onto the back of his board. And it bit down once onto the fins, so then it readjusted and bit down and had the whole back of the board in its mouth. Andrew says when he turned to look, the shark's mouth was only about 8 to 10 inches from his back. So he turned to look. He says he saw the top of the head, he saw the eye, and it wasn't registering with him. He says he looks back, but it wasn't hitting him that he's being attacked by a shark, or at least the board has just been attacked by a shark. So now he's sitting there and he starts deciding fight or flight. And he says before he could make a decision, the shark shook the board twice, once to the left and once to the right, and that tossed him into the water. Now he knows this is a shark. It's registering. He is in the water with a shark that's attacking his board. So he starts swimming straight straight towards the shore. So he's not going to wait around. Andrew starts swimming towards shore. Now Nolan doesn't know what's going on through this stuff yet. His buddy is swimming away from his board and a shark, and Nolan is clueless as to what's going on. And he says that he looks over into the water. Now just before Nolan looks over to see what's going on, Andrew is swimming, and the shark submerged. It appears that the surfaces right next to him. Shark comes up and surfaces. You're swimming away from the thing. It was back there eating your board, not surfaces next to you. And so he's now really freaked out, and that might have stopped his swimming altogether, because now Nolan looks over and sees him treading water, and he knows he's not on his board, but he thinks, well, maybe he's freaked out by a sea lion or a dolphin, and that's happened to him very recently, where he left the board because something was on that freaked him out. Well, it was just seconds, and then he saw the fin of the shark. So the shark was still in the area close to Andrew, and he says that when he got over to Andrew to get him to the beach, he was planning on having to do a tug of war with that shark with Andrew. So the shark was not ignoring Andrew altogether, it doesn't sound like. It had already bit the board, threw Andrew off the board, and then surfaced next to him when he was swimming to his buddy, or to the beach, one or the other, probably to the beach. So the two of them, they see a wave coming up, and Nolan sees the wave and says, this is the one that's going to get us to the beach. The thing takes them in, they paddle the rest of the way to the beach, they get in, they tell the Coast Guard about what happens about it. Then they go and look, or they talk to the people at the beach, the guards for the beach, and then they went to look for somebody to go find his $1,800 surfboard. So yeah, I'd be going to look for that surfboard too. So they go out and they find themselves a charter boat that takes them out. They find the board about a mile north of where he was attacked, and it has a couple little teeth marks in it, but probably still usable. I don't think it's fatal for the board. And there's no injury to either Nolan or to Andrew Gardiner, so he gets out lucky. An attack, not an attempted date, not a fatality, no injury to the surfer, the board survives. It's a happy ending all the way around for Andrew Gardiner, and that's how it'll go down in the books. They don't really say exactly what kind of a shark this ended up being, so we don't know the species. Okay, now we're going to finish out our unprovoked attacks. We are going to head over 400 meters east of the Exmouth Marina, and that is over in Western Australia. The date on this attack is December 6th of 2019. Peter O'Halloran, he is 57 years old, and he is out doing some free diving. He is halfway through one of his dives that he's doing, and he says that he's about to go deeper, so he's still swimming downward when suddenly a shark comes up. I think it was his left arm, came up and grabbed his left elbow, gave it a good shake, he said, and let go and swam off. So he has to go up and get himself in and get fixed up. He never had a really good look at the shark and doesn't even know what size it is, and being in that area, it could be, probably a reef shark, a white tip, black tip, reef shark, something like that. But it grabbed him by the elbow, and he had to go in and get this thing taken care of. Now, the reason I think this is a big shark is it's probably a reef shark, and it's a pretty big bite, 10 centimeters across, all the way to the bone, and it even chipped out a piece of his bone, coming right from the top, going all the way down into the bone of your elbow. So there's quite a bit of meat there, but 10 centimeters long, you're talking a good 5-inch cut there, 4 or 5-inch cut that's all the way to the bone, and that's probably the top center of the teeth just going all the way in there, and a real quick one and thrashing around and hitting the road. So we don't know what kind of shark it is. It's probably of size for our stats, so I'm going to put it in there unless I see otherwise, and it definitely will go down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. Like I said, we don't know what kind of shark, and it doesn't sound like there was any kind of artery or nerve damage, but it definitely chipped that bone. And they have in one of the files, in one of the papers that I was going through, they have a X-ray, and it shows the bone chip out of his arm. So pretty hefty shark to be able to go in there and just chip off a piece of your bone. It didn't say that it had any kind of tooth fragments in there, we probably know definitively what kind of shark it was. So that's our last attack of the regular show, and we'll get on with the end of the show. And this one is maybe one of these, you don't hear that every day. This one's kind of creepy, so stick around. Okay, before we get into the end of the show here, I wanted to get in. People have been sending me some clips. I did see a cool clip. This was probably a week ago now. It's been a while since I did a show, not planned, but ended up having to be like that. This tiger shark, 8 to 10 footer, is chasing a turtle, and it chases it right up onto the beach, right where the people are filming it. And the cool looking stripes on that shark is just amazing. It's a darker shark, like a brownish grayish shark, but it has black stripes on it, and it just looks cool when it's out of the water like that. And the crazy thing is how fast that turtle swims. I did not think they'd swim that fast. So that's one of the clips. I've had quite a few clips sent to me of sharks lately, and the one sharks I wanted to talk about was down in the Keys, right now on the O-Search app. I guess it was a few days ago now that I was looking at that, because I was going to do this show that day. And there's a bunch of sharks down around that have already made the curl into the Gulf, and there's a few that were going around the Keys like they do to get into the Gulf. But the strange thing is that there was a great white pinging that was halfway between the drop-off and shore. That means this shark is pinging at least a mile into the shallow water, 20, 30-foot water that we have to go out miles from Isla Morada, where we go out to the drop-off. It's about 4 miles to get to the drop-off. They have the lighthouse there that shows the boats that it's nice and shallow there where it drops, and that's where you fish for the yellowtail. Well, that's where those sharks go in there, and I thought you're pretty much safe as long as you're inside of that drop-off, but that's not the case. This one was way inside of it, and like I say, it had to be at least a mile inside of the drop-off, and this is the first time in me checking my apps that I've seen one of them do that in that area. So that'd be crazy. That'd be, just 2 miles, 3 miles from shore. But where it was down by more towards Key West. It was almost to Marathon. I don't know which key it was. It might have been at Marathon at the time, but for it to be that far inshore, I just thought they would hang out at the drop-off the whole time. So that was cool to see that. And now that we did that, we're going to go over to Miami-Dade County, Florida, and this is the Haulover Inlet, 1960. And John Taylor Wilson, he had gone out and was going to do some diving, and was in the process of doing diving when he disappeared. So people had notified the authorities, and they sent up a helicopter, and this helicopter went up there looking for him in the inlet, and they weren't able to find him. Well, like I said, they're up in a helicopter, so you can get pretty close to the surface. They found a school of sharks, not one shark, but a full school, feeding on something white about 15 feet down under the water. And most likely John. I mean, how terrible. You have a whole school of sharks attacking on you. You're not going to be aware of it very long. It'll be like Rodney, not Fox, but the other Rodney that his buddy, well, the Rodney that got pieced apart by the 2 oceanic white tips in front of his buddy. It would be like that. You would be aware of it. But it probably wouldn't be more than a couple of minutes that you would know that it's going on. But they did talk to his wife, and this is 1960, and this is just in, what month was this? October of 1960, so they don't have the date of it. But he did disappear, and they did send out the search, and they did see something white being attacked below the surface. And his wife went ahead and told the authorities that she's almost positive that he was eaten by them sharks. Maybe she had some kind of a sixth sense about that. So John Taylor Wilson, he ends up, fish food. It sounds like that's what you've been eating, sharks, not just one shark. If I had it confirmed, I'd be able to use it for a multiple shark attack. Talk about a lot of sharks. Surprising that doesn't happen more often. We'll go into another situation where a person lived through the water, but it isn't going to be on this show. Somebody that lasted longer in the water than I thought they'd ever be able to. 41 days or something like that. without ever being touched by a shark, and then they just made it up into Hawaii. And we're going to go over that on my new show, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit here. But that'll be the end of the regular show of the sharks. For everybody that was here for the sharks, we'll see you later. Everybody else, I got a couple little updates. So we were sitting there, and me and my father would go down there 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. The last time I was down in Georgia, and we went fishing. Now the thing is we've never had the boat all set to go fishing. We'd have some stuff ready and not have everything ready. Well, this time he moved the seat to be at the front of the boat, so we have one at the front and one at the back. And I mean, it's so much more comfortable. It fixed all the problems there. So we're out there and we get out onto the water. Now before we even get out onto the water, now he had taken and he had his fish finder, and he was watching YouTube videos and running out and testing it out and setting up his fish finder for us to be able to use it. We just want to see where the fish are. And so he's running back and forth and taking care of that. Well, by the time we get out on the water, that thing ain't turning on now. And back when we first started fishing, it was a problem that it wouldn't turn on. Well, we wouldn't plug it in quick enough for it to charge, for it to turn on. I told him eventually we figured out, well, it's probably like a phone, it's going to take a while to charge it, so we better hook it up early. Well, then it turns out that we get out there and the thing's not working, and he looks into that, and they say that you need your own power source to it. We kind of had it hooked up to the battery for the trolling motor, and that wasn't powerful enough to run them both. So the fish finder didn't work, but the trolling motor did. Now we're out on the water and we're fishing, and I get out there. I got 2 rods I have to go ahead and rig, because I have a brand new rod I brought out there with me, a little light, ultra light that I can shoot docks with. And then I have my 2 regular poles, and the 2 regular poles are a disaster from the last time we went out that you guys had the stories from. So I just start fishing with my pole that's set up, and soon enough I get that thing hung up and I lose that. So now I got all 3 of them so I go to rig my line. And I use bobber stops when I'm fishing for the depths to be able to quickly change depths and keep in the same depth where I'm at. And that way I can check the depths down to where the fish are. And so I put the first one together and I put the bobber on there and forgot the bobber stop. So I had to cut it off. I go ahead and tie it back on. Now I got the bobber stop on there, forgot to put the bobber on there. And this was going on 4 or 5 times in a row when I was trying to rig my shit up. I'm like, oh my God. I just wasn't with it at all. Couldn't figure any of that out. So in the process, we're fishing and we're not finding anything. And all of a sudden, we end up having to go out and go over by this little dock area. And we go over there. And we get over there and we're fishing, and he finally catches fish. It's the first fish we've caught all day, and he catches it under the dock. So now we're fishing under the dock. Well, it's getting 4:30 in the afternoon. We got out there a little bit later than normal, about 11:30. So we want to head in. We're going to let this fish go. So we let the fish go, and we're going to head in. Well, his impeller stops working. His motor's overheating. So now we had to limp in on his trolling motor to get back in, and we put the thing back up on the boat and put it back in. Now, this is the 3rd time in a row I took a full Mountain Dew, and we're talking a big K, large Mountain Dew. 3rd full one I took out there. At least the other 2 I took a drink out of. This one I don't think I even took a drink out of. But I didn't think about it till we were pulling the boat in again. And the last 3 times we were pulling the boat in, I've found the pop. It's not only flipped over, but all 3 of them had the straw punched through the bottom. So 3 of them christened the boat so far. And so I'm going to pick up the worms that we have there, and it flips upside down. And of course the top pops off, and now there's that's a pile of worm, gross stuff, dirt, shit on his boat. Oh my God, no way. What the hell was I doing all this time that I wasn't doing the show? Well, mostly dealing with my damn car. The V6. The V6 of the Camaro 2017. I had this issue where I would drive down to my dad's, and when I would get down there in Georgia, my temperature sensor wouldn't work. So my coolant temperature would tell me it's at 0. And then the fan would run all the time when you shut the car off until it thinks that it's cooled off. It's running the fan even though it doesn't need to. I would get home to cold-ass Michigan, and this wouldn't happen, and I would have temperature, I would have heat, I'd have everything normal. So my temperature sensor's bad. And seeing as you're going in there, well, to do those, you have to pull the damn manifold cover off, and I hate doing that. But I did it anyway, so pulled the cover off, took the covers off, took the manifold cover off, and now I can get down and instead of just doing the sensor, I did the thermostat too, because it's right there in the front. So I do the thermostat, and I need to get the wrench, my socket down onto the second thermostat, and I bent this quarter-inch wire-like pipe that goes right into the block, right above where I need to get to. I bent that out of the way. Got down there on top of it with my little smallest quarter-inch drive, 10 millimeter, and got that thing out. I put the sensor in first and put the clip on the sensor. Then I wiggled that the thermostat into place, got that all fastened to the engine block, and then I fastened everything, put everything back together. But when I did, I noticed that when I was putting the stuff back together, I broke that clip. There's a clip on the sensor wires that holds that on top of the sensor that tells you what temperature everything is, and I broke that clip, and that means that ain't gonna stay down. So fine, I put it back together. I know that clip isn't good, but I got the sensor wires and everything in place. Put it all back together, start it up, take it for a drive. I get out and drive around the neighborhood a little bit for about 5 minutes. Everything's fine, temperature's normal. Jump on the expressway, and I get about 25 miles away. 25 miles from the house, the thing starts overheating big time. So much so that I have to pull over on the side of the expressway, which I do not like to do, and wait for it to cool off enough to get a quarter mile up the road and off the road. So I'm sitting there on the side of the road for a good 5 minutes. I start it back up, drive it up and off the expressway, get it to a gas station, get some coolant and put that in, and look under my car and I can see a stream, a nice little 1/8 stream maybe, of coolant coming out from, there's a pan under there and it's all falling from under there. So I don't know where it's coming from. I assume it's from that little thing, but I get back to the house after it takes, I think, 2 jugs of coolant and taking it real easy. I got it all the way back home. And so now it's leaking. I pull it back into the garage, I pull everything apart again, and I'm looking around for the leak. Now when I start it with the manifold cover off, it starts and coughs itself out. I can't see where it's leaking from, but I can see shit all over the engine. So I go ahead and I call mobile mechanic. I can't get up underneath the car to see if it's leaking from anything under there. So I call this guy, and he comes out and he looks at it and he says it's the thermostat or the other thing. I'm like, oh shit. So twice taking this thing apart, put it back together. It takes about 3 hours to do the whole thing in total. And so maybe now 2 because I'm so good at it. So I pulled it apart again and looked at everything, checked everything out, bought a new wire for the harness to run down to that thing and put it on there. And now everything's clipped up and I started up again and it's still leaking. So now I'm like, well shit. So I gotta get this thing fixed. Well, I'm telling my wife, I'll change the sensor one more time, see if that's what it is. If it's leaking from the sensor, it's fine. So I take it apart again. This is the 4th time. 4th day in a row I've taken my car apart in my garage. And I take it all apart and I get in there and I change the sensor, put the clip on, everything's good there, except it's a splice fix, which I didn't like in the first place. You splice the wires to the old wire and it's just garbage to where it's supposed to be. But I got all that fixed. I actually pulled the thermostat out and checked underneath it to make sure there was nothing that it was like clamping on top of, and everything was right. And when I put it back in, I slid it around, and you can tell when you're a machinist, you can tell when steel's on steel with a little bit of liquid. It kind of gives it a grab to it. So everything's sitting good. Put it all back together, it's leaking. So finally I'm like, screw it, I'm taking it in. So I take the thing in, and that little bar, that little pipe, everything I changed was fine. That little pipe that I bent out of the way broke. And that was $999. That was as much as it would have cost me to have them change the first two things in the first place. Not only that, but then it was like $200 to get the original wiring that goes all the way to the engine. Because the thing is when you put that, when you do the splice like they actually have wire covers that are supposed to cover that wire. You can't get that back on afterwards. Looks like garbage. I was going to turn the car anyway, and told them go ahead and do that too. So I lost 5 days, took the car apart 4 times in a row, and then the 5th day I find out that I'm the one who broke it. Just another issue and another little story. So that's where I've been. I've been dealing with my car, and once that got done, I went out looking for a new car, because I need to get down to Georgia about 10 to 12 times a year to go fishing and golfing with my dad, and that car's not going to do it, and it's not good on gas. And so I'm just going to get a different car, and I should be picking that up tomorrow. And that's it for that. Now, the last update we have is on With It. And With It, what With It is it's going to be my new show. And the only way you're going to see this new show, because of my issues with YouTube, because I'm not going to try to start out a new show over on Rumble and try to find people. They don't have an algorithm. I'm going to do this thing. It's going to be my Patreon channel. So I'm starting up a Patreon channel. For $3, you can just support the show. You just pay $3, be a member. You'll be able to see posts. You'll be able to see some things that I'm doing on there. You will not be able to see the new show that I'm doing. There's going to be a $5 and $10 tier too, and you'll be able to get in. Both of those will be seeing the new show. These will be ad-free shows. You're not going to be getting ads, at least as long as I can control it. And I think we do have control of it over there to where I can have it to where I don't have ads in there, and you guys are just paying your monthly membership to have access to the show. But the show, this is the show that I've had ready since before I found out about my show, my current channel being throttled by YouTube. I've held off doing it because why do a new show? They'll just throttle that too. It's not my show they don't like, it's me. So I decided that I'm going to put this thing on my Patreon, and that's how that's going to be. And the only way I could say is it's going to be kind of similar to this show, where it's going to be a research-based show, but it's going to be a variety of topics, things that maybe you don't hear all the time, like you don't hear that every day type things. Some of them will have crossover, and I've seen Mr. Ballin do some stories that are similar to the ones that I'm going to do. Now, he did like the Russian, I'll tell you right now, my first episode is going to be on people that end up dying without being able to go to sleep. They have this, it's actually a neurological disease, kills off the prions that control your sleep, your temperature, and your eating. And it goes all out of whack, and the people that have this in their system eventually die by not being able to go to sleep. They can't get sleep. Their organs are all out of whack. We're just going to get into it. And it's going to be all kinds of things, whether it's real or whether it's things we have questions about that we'll take a look and see what's out there on it. It's going to be all over the map, but it's going to be every bit as I think as interesting as this stuff. And like I said, it's With It, which is what in the hell is that? And that's the name of the new show. It's going to be a Patreon show just for members. So I should have that started by next month. So on the 3-year anniversary of this show, I should end up having 2 shows. So this will be the Sharks. Still be going like it is. The only thing is that the new show is just going to have 1 to 2 episodes a month. They're going to be longer episodes, probably a good half hour to an hour episodes on a lot of them. And I already have about 50 of them in mind of what I'm going to do. So this is not going to be a couple shows and it's done. This is going to be a normal show like I'm doing now, only this one is the one that's going to be more 3 episodes a week, whereas the other one's going to be 1 every couple weeks. Also over there, I have a mic here. I am going to look into how I do live streaming, and then I'm going to be able to do a live stream once a month, at least once a month, maybe twice a month, where I can answer questions as you're popping them in on the show, you guys go ahead and type in questions and I can just answer them right there. So we can have a little bit of a dialogue that way and have a live episode where we talk about sharks and you guys can ask about what you want. And we can interact that way on both shows at the same time. So it's going to be a great thing to where you can support both shows. You get a brand new show with it and you get to help sharks happen in the meantime. And that's going to start up real soon. And that's everything that I have to let you know right now. I will have shows this week. I got two individual attacks and a multi-shark attack coming up this week, and then they'll have a normal attack after that. So in the next week you should have 3 to 4 episodes. But remember, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of these sharks than they are of you.